It's Astrology Rose. I think it needs to sound like a shitty intro, like a funny, shitty intro.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Astrology Roast. My name is Karen.
My name is Itai and we are back.
We are, and we have a very, very special episode in store for you today. Look, I can't guarantee that we'll stick to the topic that we feel like we'd like to talk about, but it is 4 more weeks, give or take a week or two, depending on what the current day is. I don't know what date it is, but it's about 4 weeks until the end of this decade.
My God.
And we thought it would be beautiful to reflect on the decade that's been and maybe give you a little bit of information about, you know, what's 2020 looking like, what are the next 10 years looking like, but really just to celebrate the wins of, you know, the last 10 years. And, you know, I'm sure some people have had some wins. I can't remember any of it, but Itai will help me out, I'm hopeful.
100%. And I also think that, you know, we say we're going to talk about the decade, but I suggest we're just going to talk about anything that happened before today, because we didn't have a podcast in the previous decades. So we're basically summing up everything that happened before this episode with a little bit of an emphasis on 2010 to 2019. And hopefully we will be able to give people insight about, you know, what's to come. So, I don't know, Karen, how has your decade been? Or maybe just how has your week been to begin with?
Well, you know, they're probably the same answer to both of those questions. I can't remember what's happened, and I couldn't really tell you. In my family, we have this wonderful adaptive skill that we've developed throughout the generations, which is to forget everything that's happened ever. So, you know, if I ask my mother, my Cancerian mother, you know, what happened then? Did you ever, you know, did you go here, or why? What happened when I was born? Or she just goes, I can't remember.
Wow.
All the time. I can't remember. So it's something that I'm very proud of. Like, I've taken that from her and I really can't remember what's happened. And it's a very adaptive skill. It helps you kind of move forward in life. But I think I can safely say about the past decade as well as the past week, it's been tumultuous. It's been a hot mess. It's been wild. It's always interesting and entertaining, and I can't really remember. So that's for me. And when you asked me to reflect on the last decade, I started talking about September 11. Which you then told me was not actually in the last 10 years, was in 2001. So that's a sense of kind of my idea of time
it
being
was
kind of mushed into one.
It was 19 years ago, and I also told you that the only reason I remember that is because Britney Spears released an album on the same month, and then it fucked up her sales. And I was like, you know, yes, the Twin Towers, obviously a big disaster, but what about Britney's third album, her self-titled album that never got the fame that it should have gotten, you know? And that's an injustice right there. But
well, I mean, some would argue that it's probably a conspiracy theory.
What, that George Bush never liked Britney to begin with?
Yes,
and he was
exactly.
like...
Exactly. I'm just saying, if things add up, if the story makes sense, it's worth believing in.
Fucking reptilians, I'll tell you. Anyway, so we talked about the idea of memory on this podcast, I think, a lot. And the fact that you just said, you know, that in your family is a survival mechanism, you don't remember. And I remember other episodes where we talked about it, you know, how memory is, you know, transferred to us by our grandparents and blah, 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 and transgenerational trauma and whatever and whatnot. I also don't remember a lot of my childhood, but I do remember full conversations because of my Virgo moon. I can literally quote like conversations that happened to me when I was, you know, 5 and up. And, you know, there was always the phone call conversation and me telling people that people think that I'm a woman when I answer the phone, you know? I don't know if you remember that. I still get I still get messages to our Instagram saying, you two ladies are hilarious. And we spoke about it on the podcast, and about how my voice is in between male and female, and how I have the same voice as Gal Gadot has. There's a lot of theories. But often, when I tell people that people think I'm a woman, they don't believe me in real life. They're like, what? No. And I'm like, yeah, I swear. And people argue. And I'm like, it's funny that you argue, because since I was a little gay boy, I had to deal with picking up the phone and people thinking that I am my mother. But this week, something happened to me that really, it settled the argument, because I was at a stand-up comedy, and the comedian asked, who here is on Tinder? And so I made a noise. I was like, woo! And then she goes, you little slut. And I was like, what? And it was in Hebrew, so it was a female slut. It wasn't like, oh, I'm progressive, I'm calling men and women sluts. It was like, you are a female that is on Tinder and you are a slut. And that was the joke.
Wait, and is this in 2019 or is this 30 years ago?
Well, it's in Israel, so it was...
When this story...
It's in Israel, and it was in the basement of a club, and it was very, very inappropriate, and the jokes were I was like, this isn't even ironically funny. This was just,
wow.
Men and women are so different, because when a guy goes to the supermarket, he doesn't find what he needs to find, and a girl can do it when she's blindfolded. I was like, yeah.
Kind of story checks out a bit. I don't know.
All my point is...
Call me a crazy slut, but I think that sounds great.
Well, call me a little slut, but I am on Tinder. And next time someone argues that I don't have a female voice, I'll be like, I have a really new story to prove you wrong.
Well, I think that also highlights even things like Tinder and Instagram and all of these references that we make in this very modern cosmopolitan podcast that we've been doing, for quite a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
These are all new things. These are of this generation. And who knows in 30 years' time when we're chatting on this podcast, will we be talking about being called a little slut who uses Tinder, or will we all be robots with, Tinder in our systems? I don't know.
All the kids are now on TikTok, which is the app. There's an app. It's called TikTok. Let me tell you, it used to be called Musical.ly, and now it's TikTok, and it's outrageous and it's crazy, and it's kind of like if Instagram is a Leo, in here I am at my best, and here I am at my most photogenic, and give me your likes and your story views. Then TikTok is a Gemini or an Aries. It's just hectic and insane. It's a combination of Vine and Instagram, and it's basically the hottest thing right now. The fact that both you and me are not on it is
what? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's look, we should be there.
I feel that dating should actually step back 5 or 10 years. I want to start meeting people on MySpace again. I want to meet people that are not in my neighborhood.
I want to write to someone.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to write to someone too. I remember when I was in Israel when I was 18. That was more than a decade ago. But I remember working as a youth worker for a bit there, and all the kids were writing letters to the soldiers, pen pals with soldiers, because there was some war going on. So I think that was very romantic at the time. I don't know. Things have changed a lot. I don't know about this TikTok business.
I know. I like Instagram. I like me a Leo app. So, Karen, before we dive back into the past decades, what's to come? We are in Sagittarius season, and everyone's a bit happier.
Yeah, look, I don't know who you've been talking to. No one I know is a bit happier, but we're at the tail end of the year. People are feeling stressed, overwhelmed, exhausted. All these Sagittarians are running around, blurting out whatever they think. So it is a very stressful, heightened time. I have heard from a lot of very wise, sage people that 2020 is going to be a really powerful and strong time. I couldn't give you the exact precise details because my phone is on 40%. Usually the internet is where I source most of my research. But I know that every single astrologer that I follow, every single Instagram account of an astrologer, every Pisces that I talk to keeps affirming to me, just wait for 2020. The numerology of 2020 is a equal, beautiful, well-known good fortune number. And it does have a sense like that all of our struggles are leading to some heightened consciousness. And I can always look to Britney Spears' Instagram for a bit of a sense of what's going on psychically in the universe. And if anyone else has been observing her Instagram, and if you've been listening to us for a while, you know that we refer often to what's happening for Britney, because Itaya, you are a huge fangirl.
Yes.
A fan slut, sorry. I don't know what's the politically correct term in 2019. You are a huge fan slut of Britney Spears. A little slut, sorry. And she has been posting a lot of psychic, new age things. She recently posted a picture of a very well-known Oprah-inspired new age book called The Four Agreements, which you can find on Amazon. It's a tiny little book. You also find it in a lot of thrift op shops if you are moving around. And it's a new age book about all these four kind of ways to live and ways to live your life. And I think he made a lot of money from this book. But she is starting to kind of talk about the esoteric and the psychic, and her brain is cracking open to the universe. And I feel like that's what's in store. Like, we've been kind of hustling for quite a bit. And I think 2020, I hope there's a real healing energy. And, I hope to give a bit more research around this rather than just my vibes. But my vibes tell me that it's going to be a beautiful new decade to come. It's been a very chaotic decade. I know September 11 wasn't in this decade, but it feels like it was, and all the remnants and the residue of it. It feels like we're all in this kind of collective washing machine, and we're all tumbling around. And I think maybe this next decade, hopefully it'll be when we get out of the washing machine and we're put on the line to dry, and the sun is kind of on us, and we're having some time to sit with whatever's happened to us. So that's more, my sense of what's
that's
coming.
More of your hope and your kind of like what you wish for all of us. It is hope,
but what I do know, and what I've been having a lot of conversations about, is that faith and hope is very important. A lot of people have been referencing George Michael to me lately, and I know that George Michael passed away this decade, and he was an amazing channel and an amazing creative artist. But his songs around faith and hope, like, you feel when you hear them that everything is chaos, everything is a disaster, everything is falling apart, but he's going to live and embrace life with this kind of irreverent faith. And I think that's what we're experiencing at the moment, this kind of blind hope and faith. Is it going to work out? Probably not. Are we in a climate change emergency? According to the signs in the suburb that I live in, Northcote, which is a very white, gentrified suburb in Melbourne, yes, it is a climate emergency. Yes, but we still have to have faith, and blind faith at that. So I think that is the energy that I'm bringing into the next decade. And I feel very hopeful about it. But I think it's important that you, because you do have memories with your Virgo moon, reflect a bit more on the decade and the decades that have been. So, I mean, what was the best bath that you had in the last million years? Or what was the best coffee that you had? Or what was the migration journey that your family experienced in the last 50 to 100 years that impacted your current, anxiety or existential sense of self? Like, tell me about that.
Well, there's so many answers to all of these questions, but, just to begin with, 60 years ago, my family came from Morocco to Israel. And a lot of people don't believe me when I say that, but I am Moroccan, even though I cannot eat spicy food. I did try to eat a spicy dish this weekend. And you know when ethnic people like myself talk about how beautiful their grandma's food is, or like, oh my God,
Yes.
I always remember the maklube that my grandma used to make. They tell you how good it is and they tell you how spicy they can eat, but they don't tell you how fucking burning hot their asshole is when this food comes out. I was shitting
course.
fire. I was shitting lava yesterday, and I'm like,
Okay.
no one tells you that. I was always
No one tells you that.
I was always the gay boy that was like not eating spicy and, you know, left wing and like love minorities and stuff like that. So I was always different. I was always the rainbow sheep, as little gay boys love to say. And you know what also doesn't add up? The 13th sign. The 13th sign that was apparently, allegedly discovered by NASA, which is like, okay, let's say you have put a person on the moon. Not saying I fully believe that, but let's say
Wow.
you have. We've all seen the pictures of the flag, and we all know that the flag just doesn't just wave itself on the fucking moon, okay? We've all seen movies.
We've all been awake at 4 a.m. watching YouTube clips
Spiraling.
of conspiracy theories.
Spiraling into YouTube videos of the moon and why did Camila Cabello left Fifth Harmony, the true story. We've all been there. There's so much footage, I can't even begin. But basically, NASA was like jumping on the trend of astrology and announcing that there's a new constellation. And, you know, I don't want to know that. I don't need to hear that. And I don't need to see that. Anyway, I posted this, obviously, a meme about it, and people were offering their sarcastic answers, such as, sounds like bullshit, you can't just add another sign. We really don't want to divide people to 13 types, because 12 makes way more sense, because, you know, you can divide it to 4, to 3, but 13 just doesn't cut it. And some people were offering actual solutions, like, you know, the fact that they just look at the sky differently, which I personally really relate to because it really solves it, but you don't need to really go into depth. They just look at the skies differently. So I just feel like NASA, thank you for all the good work that you've done with the space and everything, but leave astrology to us.
I want to ask, you know, and thank you, NASA, as well. Like, I obviously forgot to thank them at the beginning of this episode, but thank you, NASA, for, you know, your beautiful work and for the Ariana Grande song that is NASA, which we've spoken about before. But Itai, I want to ask you, what has been the most important wisdom or advice that you've picked up along this journey that we call life? Okay. And if you want to contain it to the last 10 years and keep it within these kind of confines and these barriers that you've set for this episode. But if you want to move to, you know, a little outside of that decade or into the future, that's cool too. But what's been the most beautiful advice or wisdom that someone's maybe told you, or you've seen on the internet, or you've read in a book? A book?
Book? What is that? First of all, what a plot twist of this conversation. I was fully ranting about NASA, and then you just come and, you know, shake it all up. Obviously, I have so much to say, and I would like to also, once I'm done, ask you the same question. So, I think my first memory, and I've spoken about it on the podcast before, is every Rosh Hashanah, which is a New Year's Eve in Judaism, I would cry for a reason, like either I would have a fight with my dad or anything, and I would just sit on the floor and cry, and my grandma would come to me and tell me, don't cry. If you cry on Rosh Hashanah, you will cry for the rest of the year, which she wasn't wrong about. So that is a tip that, you know, I now believe, because it proved to be right, but I don't know what to do with it, because I did end up crying every holiday. So there's that, which is, it is wise. It didn't help me much, but
Yep.
it is wise. I think my actual two best lessons obviously came from my mom. And I think you definitely know one of them. The first one is, tomorrow we will be smarter, which is the most annoying thing. I remember I was supposed to get a trip to Paris to see my auntie, and because my family was the poor family out of the 10. My mom is one of 10 siblings, and she was like the poor one. So all of my other aunties and uncles gave money to my mom so she can buy me a ticket to go see my auntie in Paris. That was for like my bar mitzvah, which is when you're 13 and you become a man. I became a man, except I didn't get the voice of a man. But other than that, I was growing up. So basically, she wanted to book me a flight, but she had to book like a cheap one. So I kept asking her every day, like, when will I fly? What's the date? I need to put in my Google Calendar, which I didn't have back then. It was another decade. The internet didn't exist. So she used to tell me every day, tomorrow we will be smarter. Basically, instead of saying, tomorrow the prices might change, tomorrow we'll be smarter. And I really, now I remember really, I was like screaming back to her. I was like, this is such a stupid sentence. Like, what will we know tomorrow that we don't know today? Me being like the Aries. I'm like, you want to book a flight.
Tomorrow we will be poorer. Tomorrow we will be older. Tomorrow we will,
Wow, it really, now that I talk about
tomorrow.
it, I really understand that I was a brat all along. Anyway, so tomorrow we will be wiser, we will be smarter. That's a sentence. And the second one is, go see what they say, which is...
Oh, I love
maybe
that
you
one.
can...
I love that sentence.
You can talk about the sentence because it came relatively is new to you. What do you think about it?
Yes. I just love that sentence. Go and see what they say. And it's kind of... It works really well for me, and I imagine your mother speaking of it, which gives it a whole new level of wisdom and Capricorn strength. But it's kind of really low investment, low expectations. So it kind of tells you to just shut the fuck up, lower your expectations that everything has to be perfect and amazing, and you need to know the full concept of something before you can engage with it. And it's very discerning. It's like, I'm going to just check this out. I'm not really committed. I'm just going to suss it out and see what the vibes are and if I feel connected to this. And whatever it may be, it might be a new job, it might be a lover, it might be a new situationship. And I love it because it allows you to take a step forward because you're not having to really understand the full picture. The only goal or the only outcome that you need to work towards when you say that beautiful line, go see what they say, is my goal here is to get more information or to understand what's happening or to just find out a little bit more about something. That's all it is, to suss it out or to show up.
And it's
I really, really think it's
mostly said before you, like, if you're like scared to go to a job interview or if you're scared to start something new, or like my mom never told me that about like getting a tattoo or a piercing or anything. Go see what they say, try.
Yes.
But every time I would be like, I'm not sure if I want to get this job. I'm not sure if I want to apply for this program. She would be like, go see what they say. Like, see what happens. Do they accept you? And if they accept you, then make the decision then. And I'm one to be like, really, I want to plan. I want to decide on the spot before I even do anything. And then this sentence kind of remind me that anything can happen. You know, like
I love it.
Like Fifth Harmony sang in the X Factor. They sang anything can happen. That's another reference to Fifth Harmony this episode. What about you?
What about me? Well, there's another song that I love by a band called The Clean, and they say anything could happen and it could be right now, which, if you're feeling a Jupiter sense of abundance and like the world is providing for you and all is well, that's a beautiful line. Anything could happen and it could be right now. If you're feeling a bit anxious and stressed and fearful of the future, anything could happen and it could be right now has a very different tone and a very different meaning. But I guess, in terms of any wisdom or advice that I've learned in the last decades, a beautiful line that I was told when I was on my Eat, Pray, Love India trip. That was 2 or 3 months spent traipsing around India with some of my best friends and going to various gurus, some of which are now obviously been defamed for various offences. But at the time, they were very beautiful gurus and beautiful spaces, and I was travelling around, and I was on a train in India, and the train had stopped, and it was sitting stationary for hours in the middle of a paddock, and I was sitting next to this man, and he said to me and my other friends on the train that life is about fun and adjustments. And I think that's also a really beautiful line, because particularly in the context of India or travelling on a train in India where everything breaks down and you run out of gas and electricity and all these changes that happen all the time, you can't really have that same sense of control over your environment that we cherish in the individualistic West. So the concept of fun and adjustments, and really, I just think it's this lightness and a lightness of being that, as I've spoken many times on this podcast and just today, coming from a family where we speak a lot about suffering and suffering through things and survival, emphasis on humour and lightness and pleasure and happiness, and that life is a chaotic, crazy, non-linear experience,
this
even if we try our very best. This podcast too, we jump from idea to idea, but hopefully there's something that resonates with people along the way if they stick to it and they stay along with us. But I think fun and adjustments, it's kind of the way to live life by. And that really resonated with me. And similar to, my grandmother, who I was just speaking about, my Israeli grandmother, who spoke about being a feather, and she kind of lands wherever she lands, and no one ever didn't like her. She's a really likable person. I mean, she was also a total hot, foxy babe, which I think maybe lent itself to her likability. But she was also the youngest of the family. And Itai, I know your mum, not your grandma, but your mum was the youngest of the family. And even though you just mentioned that she was quite poor and she had to get money from all the cousins to go to France or wherever to send you for your bar mitzvah to Paris, the gay Paris. But she, from your descriptions of your mum, she has a real sense of abundance.
Yes.
She has a sense of opportunity and seizing opportunity, and you don't just sit there and stop. You always can doing and action and initiation, and she is a Capricorn, but she has a sense of that the world is providing for her, because she was the youngest of a huge family. She was doted on, she was loved, and she had a sense of wealth. Even if they weren't wealthy in Australia, she felt it. So I think this concept that it's not about, are you wealthy, do you have all your ducks in a row, but do you have a sense of the world providing? And not everyone's family life or your upbringing may have told you that the world is a fearful place and that anything is going to happen to you and it's going to be horrible and it's going to happen now. But I think, I don't know, we can kind of work towards developing that sense of abundance. And I don't know, fun and adjustments, that's something I can get behind. Going and seeing what they say, that's something simple I can do, and these little pithy one-liners in this kind of messy, overstimulating world that we're living in at the moment, I don't know, they seem to help me get by, and they'll hopefully carry me to the next decade too.
That's amazing. And I also love the birds chirping, is that the word? In the back. In the background while you...
Can you hear them? I'm sitting in a paddock. I really am sitting in a paddock.
It is beautiful.
Next to the Merry Creek. And people are shopping for organic fruit and veggies with their stinky kids.
Well, the Merry
holding
Creek
baskets. I've always...
is where I was almost bitten by a snake. If our listeners remember, I had a month where I was dreaming about a snake every night, and then I saw a snake and it almost bit me. Anyway, so it reminded me of the sentence. Your story was reminding me of the sentence from Judaism when it says, it asks the question, who is a happy person? And the answer is he who is happy with his lot. And it's that. You don't need to have much. You just need to be a man, a he, and to be happy with your lot. So So that is a...
Yes, and the thing is though, like how it's very hard to be happy with your lot in this day and age. Like lately, I don't know if anyone else listening has been bombarded with all of the Black Friday sales.
Oh my God.
Online. It's been insane. Like the online shopping opportunities that have presented themselves at this time. Like I just, there's all these things that I want and I want to click buy, and I don't even like online shopping, but everything is kind of messaging to us that we don't have enough and we shouldn't be happy with our lot.
Is there any better way to celebrate the beginning of Sagittarius season other than Black Friday, you know? But it makes it hard because how can I be happy with my lot when I want like more of a lot? I want a lot of my lot. Like that's not enough. I want to give a shout out. You said that our podcast is I don't remember the right term, but it was like an unexpected journey, just like life, in that whoever sticks around gets to experience that. And we often say that there are no Virgos that listen to our podcast because we offended them at the 6th minute of the first episode, and they never went back. But there is one Virgo at least that I know of that is an exemplary Virgo. She's, first of all, funny, as we know Virgos are, because they are mercurial sign, and she's fucking funny. Her stories always make me laugh. She's critical. She pays attention to details. She's really the ultimate Virgo, and I know her from this podcast. She's from the other side of Australia, like south. Is that south? What's the name of this? I forgot everything I know about this country. Southern Australia? Is that the place?
Yeah, I'm sure that's a place.
Well,
yes,
whatever.
South Australia.
She's from a southern
place. Adelaide is.
Adelaide. Anyway, she was listening to, her name is Ariza, and she was listening to our latest episode where I said that my Gemini roommate turned my house into a central station with all the couch surfers. And she just wrote to me, "Oh my God, babe, how are you living with all those couch surfers? My brain broke when you said that during your podcast. I would legit be doing the most hectic Virgo shit to make that shit stop." And I was like, give me ideas. And I just want to share her ideas because I think they're genius. So 1, sabotages access to internet, i.e. destroy his charger, destroy Wi-Fi, spill milk on how he accessed the internet, which I also love. It's about communication, still on brand of the Virgo. 2, be in and that's classic Virgo. Be in a really negative mood for 1.5 weeks. I also love, it's like such a general thing, but a Virgo would know exactly what this looks like. Be in a really negative mood for 1.5 weeks. Then the last one, which is my personal favorite thing of, literally, that's how I'm going to suggest for people that need to be passive-aggressive or aggressive. The third one is play Let's Get Loud by J-Lo on repeat.
I don't know, to be honest, Itai, in the current housing situation that you have, I think that would just increase the party vibes. I don't think it's going to work.
I know, but Let's Get Loud is such a, unbearable song, especially if you put the video
I love
on.
it.
If you put the video, which is like a live performance video, which is the worst type of any videos, that's just a horrible. And I just want to add one more text. She wrote, "All those Virgos not listening to astrology roast, they must have Cancer moons. Seriously, I'm as Virgo as fuck as it gets. Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury. So you know I am legit right about everything. It's 11 p.m. and I'm cleaning." Oh my God, thank you, Ariza, for all of these amazing texts and the support that I really needed. You are a true Virgo, and we just thank you as a podcast, I think.
Yes, wow, what amazing, beautiful beautiful suggestions and so practical as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please send more if anyone is having housemate-related issues.
Be in a really negative mood for 1.5 weeks? I'm down. Starting now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just, obviously I want to take that as an opportunity to thank everyone that's been listening for the last couple of years. Like, whilst the last decade is certainly a blur with, occasional vivid, visceral memories of, trauma, but also crazy stuff. But the one consistent memory of pleasure and joy that I can certainly vouch for is this podcast and interacting with everyone on the Instas and sharing this with you, Itai. And, it's a pleasure that's kind of going to take us from this decade into the next, hopefully. Yeah. So thank you, everyone, also, for sticking with us and also...
Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's all. That's all I can say.
Well, I just want to give another shout out, I'm sorry, for Cancerians, because I know we have been hard on you guys in the past decade, you can say, or even more. And I had 2 encounters with Cancerians that were really, really positive, and I wanted to share them if you're okay with that, if your phone battery allows.
Yes, my phone battery allows, and I've got a lot of beautiful things to say about Cancerians.
Really? Say one.
Please, share.
Say one.
Well, I've had a lot of interactions with Cancerians, or, some in the last year, and that's been really healing and beautiful for me. And that's all I can really say, publicly or privately.
Well,
and that's a lot,
I will say,
and I think they are beautiful. They need to feel safe. They need to feel safe
sure do
in order to feel able to nurture you.
And we need to feel safe around them. I will start by balancing everything that I'm going to say positive about Cancerians. I will start by saying that, as I suspected, George W. Bush is a Cancerian as well, which takes us back to where we started in September 11, 2001.
But isn't George Michael also a Cancerian?
He is. Oh my God.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like, we can be so many things. Like, you can be a George Bush or a George Michael. You can destroy, or you can make love and pleasure and.
As long as you're a George. Also, Ariana Grande is a Cancerian as well, which we know and we love. Anyway, so I don't think I mentioned that on the podcast already, but my mom was organizing this talk in my hometown about this gay man that made a movie about his experience growing up religious. So he's gay, he's Jewish, he was religious, he went to a yeshiva, which is a religious school, which I went to as well, and he made a film about his conversion therapy. So that's basically where you go to the rabbis and you go to psychologists and they give you exercises to stop being gay. So some of them are pain related, so you have this rubber band around your arm, and every time you think about a man, you cause yourself pain. Or one of them is to masturbate and think about women. So it's kind of like cognitive behavior treatment, but like hardcore. Literally like the dogs, like Pavlov's dogs, for all of our psych enthusiasts.
Yes.
So basically you train yourself to not think about men. Usually 99% of cases it doesn't work. And some people like marry a woman and then a few years later they come out of the closet. Some people live their whole life married to a woman. Some people quit Judaism, and some people also harm themselves, unfortunately. So my mom, my Capricorn mom, as we know, she didn't accept me in the beginning, but ever since she did, she became the biggest advocate for gay rights, and she decided to bring this guy to my religious hometown with his film to show the film. It's a 30-minute film, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful film, to show the film and to give a talk after. This crazy rabbi, this found out about the event and went to this guy's Facebook and wrote on his wall, I'm going to like blow up your event. I'm going to come and ruin it. And like all these threats and like you're an abomination, other crazy shit. I really want to know this rabbi star sign, but also I don't, because I don't want to claim that this star sign is a homophobic, crazy piece of shit, but okay. Anyway, my mom, obviously, he fueled her engines just by saying that. So she was like, going full power, I'm going to run this event. But obviously, when he said that, there was like this huge backlash, and they tried, so they made her move the event to another town. I know, 2019,
Whoa.
coming to 2020, not everywhere is like a normal place still, unfortunately. Even though I did fly to Paris multiple times, my hometown is still stuck in the past. So anyway, the event obviously happened at the end and got more buzz, and I got to publish a really touching post on Facebook about homophobia, and I got 730 likes. And I also posted this really hot photo of me and
Yes.
Jean-Pierre, my French lover from earlier episodes. If you didn't listen, go back and check it out. But basically, this rabbi caused more like good than bad by doing this, because so many people got to be exposed to this event and come. And my point is, the guy that was giving the talk was a Cancerian, and he did this unbelievable job. And I was like, this is the work of a Cancer, because he stood there on the stage, and people were asking the most horrendous questions that you would ask, like, were you abused as a kid? Is that why you're gay? And you can't come to the synagogue because we all know you like to take it up the butt, like really crazy things.
Oh.
But he was like the most empathetic. Like, he started all of his answers by acknowledging the person that was asking them. And I know some people would listen now and be like, why would you do that? But that was his approach, and it was really amazing to watch. And then when it was over, I had to take the bus back to Tel Aviv, back to where I can, live my life to the fullest. And I couldn't, the buses didn't come because I live in a shithole. So I was hitchhiking, and in true Sagittarius fashion, the only car that stopped for me went to the airport. And I was like, okay, like I have to get closer to the center of the country, so I'm just going to go to the airport, and then I'm going to go to Tel Aviv from the airport. And the guy that stopped the car was also a Cancerian, who was going to pick up his dad and his wife from the airport. They just came back from Russia, where they played in the World Chess Tournament and both won to be top 5 people in the world for chess for their age group. And he was just going to pick them up from the airport on the first day of Sag season. And I was like, and he was a Cancerian. And I was like, that's really Cancerian of you to go and pick up your family from the airport. And also stopping the car for me. Thank you very much. And just to end the story on a happy note, the rabbi then messaged me on Facebook and offered me to study with him. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Also because I have this little fantasy of like, me changing him to become gay, and then us being like, changing the world together. But also just to, have a dialogue. So I just came back before recording this episode from an hour and a half of Torah studying with a homophobic rabbi.
Wow. I love that you're like, just to end on a positive note. But I think that's a beautiful, beautiful story to kind of summarize the energy that we're moving from and towards. So in this story that you've told of there are so many people and players in this story that have contributed to a beautiful healing and challenging outcome. So your Capricorn mum, who was faced with this challenge of, firstly, the fact that she's come along such a long way from initially maybe not being so supportive when you told her you were gay, and now being like the biggest advocate and just running with it and being a leader in that sense. But she took this challenge of being shut down and made this event sell out and be huge. She didn't shut herself down or quiet herself. She was like, no, okay, we're still going to go ahead. Then you, in your typical Aries wild fashion, post this super hot, but also super articulate post about homophobia, again, challenging people and also reaching out for dialogue with the person that is telling or saying all these horrible things. And then you have this beautiful Cancerian who spoke at the event, you know, holding the space with empathy and care and nurture, whilst informing people and helping them come on that journey to greater understanding, hopefully. And, you know, none of the people in this story need to do any of these things. You know, you didn't need to have to, you know, right people's wrongs and inform them about this. Your mum didn't need to be an advocate. This Cancerian doesn't need to answer people's horrific homophobic questions in an audience. But everyone is choosing to kind of have a more sophisticated, healing dialogue, even though it's challenging and it's hard work. And I think, you know, it's a beautiful indicator of that, you know, yes, the world is crazy. Yes, there's chaos. Yes, there's going to be more. But there's still movement, there's still change, you know. Maybe your town, even though it's in 2007, maybe your town will move to 2012 next year. Who knows?
Yes.
You know, maybe they'll get Wi-Fi. I don't know.
It is the age of Aquarius. And
it is. There's hope.
There is hope. So, yeah, thank you for listening to all of it, to the past decade of roasting in Astrology Roast. And we are excited to go into the next decade. It's going to be a Sag month. It's going to be Britney's birthday. It's going to be other people's birthdays. Please celebrate, go crazy, have fun, travel the world, learn philosophy, do everything that Sag month invites you to do. And we will sure be here to keep on this journey on the next episode of Astrology Rose.